Ryan Day. Everything we said about Ryan Day up into the playoffs was true.
Not bad. Come on, Kenner. You can do better than that.
To be fair, of all the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, Joe Burrow is the least accomplished.
Getting better.
1,000,000%. I 1,000,000% believe that the Dayton Flyers are afraid of the Wright State Raiders. That's why they come up with every excuse in the book not to play them.
There it is. The hottest take of them all. It's the Justin Kenner Show, presented by Frickers, live on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Well, the week just continues to fly by, and yet as each day goes on, there's just more and more stuff that develops when it comes to your Bengals, to your Browns, to your Buckeyes, and we got it all covered for you right here on 1410 ESPN Radio, the Justin Kenner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Little delayed getting the show off and rolling today, a little computer malfunction, but I think we got it. We're live. We're on the Justin Kenner Show Facebook page. We're on ESPN Dayton's YouTube channel. That's all that matters. And we're excited to be hanging out with you guys here today on a Wednesday. We talk a lot of Reds, right? When it does come to baseball, I want to talk Guardians today. Ramirez against his front office over in Cleveland. I want to talk about that coming up around the corner. We talk so much. Every time a big-time free agent, or at least a big-time player, is up for an extension, we talk all the time, well, man, they love playing here so much that, maybe they'll give by the way, I heard it from all of you Bengals fans, Joe Burrow's going to give a hometown discount. That dude took every dollar that he had coming to him. And I'm not even anti-Joe Burrow when it comes to that. He should have. He should not have given the Bengals a hometown discount, and he didn't. But everyone out there that was foolish enough to think that was going to be the case, I thought it was adorable. Jamar Chase, same thing. Thought he was going to give the Bengals a hometown discount. He did not. T. Higgins got his market value. Like, everyone got what they had coming to them. As far as no one gave the Bengals a hometown discount. That's not really how it works on professional sports. But the one time that it did, you could blame a professional sports organization in Cleveland for probably ruining it for everybody else. And we'll talk about that coming up around the corner. We spent a lot of time on yesterday's show with the news, the Browns trading Joe Flacco to the Cincinnati Bengals in exchange for a 2026 fifth-round draft pick. The Browns also sent an additional sixth round with Joe Flacco to the Cincinnati Bengals, of course. So the Bengals have multiple sixth-round picks. They give up their fifth-round pick to acquire Joe Flacco. And, this is a team last year. By the way, why am I drawing a blank? What was the running back's name that the Bengals got at the deadline last year? Didn't literally make one little tiny impact on this team whatsoever, but they gave up a late round draft pick to get him, and they just threw a pick away. So they get another pick back. That's all that matters. But, Will, moving on, you guys we can sit here and act like a fifth round pick is nothing. When you are a team like the Bengals that has so many holes, I think you got to be very cautious of what draft picks that you just throw away, especially when you have so much money allocated. You've paid Joe Burrow a lot of money, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Trey Hendrickson on this deal, of course. And if Trey Hendrickson goes away, when he goes away, you're going to have to spend that money elsewhere. So that money is still just going to be repurposed somewhere else. There's just not a lot of available funds to go piece the rest of the roster together comfortably. So these draft picks become very, important. But the Bengals aren't worried about that right now. You guys certainly don't care about the draft because this Joe Flacco thing kind of seems like a little bit of a lifeline here early in the season. It just feels like, okay, I'm a fan of a team. I'm a fan of a team that's 1-4. The season is really, deep down, I know it's done, but I'm doing what you guys are doing where I'm like, well, what if the Browns win this weekend and they're 2-4, that'd be not just a win, but a win over a division opponent. And, still mathematically very much so in play here, but they're done. And I feel like that's what Bengals fans are doing with this Joe Flacco thing is, well, Joe Flacco, he can really sling it still. Can he? We hope, you hope, but even if he can still sling it, what does that necessarily mean? We saw Joe Burrow sling it with the best of them last year, would have won an MVP. If the Bengals probably win one more game, like I do think if with the numbers that Joe Burrow put up, if they beat the Patriots in week 1 and the Bengals are a 10-win team, I think Joe Burrow probably gets that MVP last year. Right? Like, I think that Joe Burrow sitting at home with the Bengals is why he didn't win an MVP last year. I think Joe Burrow, and that's coming from me, who was always trying to find a way to discredit Joe Burrow, according to a lot of you. As we sit here right now, I just truly believe that they win that Patriots game or they win one of those Ravens games. They just get to double-digit wins, and in the playoffs, Joe Burrow's your MVP last year. But we watched Joe Burrow put up nearly 5,000 passing yards last year. He threw for over 40 touchdowns, completed 70% of his passes, and even with those monster numbers, still couldn't get that team into the postseason. So let's say that Joe Flacco comes in and plays a much better style and plays. I mean, he is better than Jake Browning. I'll give you guys that. But I don't think he necessarily fixes the problems that Jake Browning was presenting, which was his inability to not turn the ball over. Joe Flacco's a turnover machine as well. He's just going to look more poised doing it. That's going to be the thing. But besides that, it's just one of those things where even if Joe Flacco does come in and sling it, what does that necessarily mean for the Bengals? What does that necessarily mean? What does that do? Joe Burrow nearly threw for 5,000 yards, 40-plus touchdowns, 70% of his passes, and still missed the playoffs. So when you say that Joe Flacco, with these weapons, he can come in and sling it, I don't know what that necessarily means because the defense is still bad. They can't run the football in the offensive line. I mean, I'm saying the same things every day, but these problems are the same problems every year. It's not just, oh, man, it shouldn't just be me saying this every single day. This is national media when it comes to talking about the Bengals. I mean, you look at the numbers speak for themselves. This team has so many flaws that, if Joe Flacco does, kind of put a little bit of a steady presence at that quarterback position and stops the bleeding there, I just don't know what that technically does for the Bengals. I just don't. One other thing too, Jay Morrison covers the Bengals. He tweeted this out earlier. That in a big update when it comes to the defensive side of the ball, of course, Shamar Stewart is going to practice or did practice today or practicing right now based on the timing of this tweet. Jay Morrison says that according to Zach Taylor, Shamar will practice today and they'll see if he can progress enough to play on Sunday. They did announce earlier that Joe Flacco will start against the Packers. On Sunday, the Bengals are a 14-point dog. The last I checked, at one point it was 14.5. After the trade, I think it shifted by a half a point and it was at 14. And by the way, let's just check now. I got time. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here till 5, people. So let's just go ahead and check what this little line is right now to see if it has shifted at all with the Joe Flacco addition. No, it's still sitting, at least according to the sportsbook I use. We use here, obviously with being ESPN, we use the ESPN sportsbook. It still has Green Bay as a 14.5-point favorite. So that did not shift the way that I thought. But nonetheless, I'm intrigued. So yes, I have a habit of being very, very negative. I like to say that I'm realistic, but if you guys want to say I'm negative, fine. Let's put the positive spin on this, okay? If you guys truly believe, I'll meet you at your level where you guys are at mentally. And I think there are some Bengals fans who don't even think that this is enough, but I can't ignore social media when there's a groundswell of optimism about this Joe Flacco addition. Because I've told you guys, I like Joe Flacco. It pains me to say that, but I do. I like Joe Flacco. I don't think he was the problem in Cleveland this year. I think that his interceptions are a problem. When, like a couple years ago, when he was turning the ball over with Cleveland, they could run the heck out of the football. They were still scoring a ton of points. Their defense was elite. They had enough weapons to overcome those turnovers. But when this team struggled, Cleveland, to score, they haven't scored the offense has not scored over 20 points since December of 2023, and he's responsible for some of that stretch as well. I look at this and I'm like, well, there's like they have no pass catchers. They can't, the run game is solid, but it's not what it once was. The defense is elite, sure, but the margin for error is so slim now. 2 years ago, when you had an explosive offense and an explosive run game and everything else, and they were a more well-balanced team, they could overcome some of those mistakes. They can't overcome those now. So those turnovers are going to happen in Cincinnati, and I guess the question that you got to ask yourselves is, are the Bengals good enough to overcome those? I don't think that they are. The good news is Joe Flacco turns it over a lot, just like, obviously, Jake Browning. That's not the good news. The good news is he doesn't nearly do it as high of a clip as Jake Browning. And you got to think that, the fact that the Bengals fought as hard as they did against the Lions, a lot of their problem, and the defense is bad, yes, but the defense for the Bengals wasn't being put in any great situations when you have Jake Browning throwing for so many interceptions. They lose 37-24. 2 of those 3 interceptions led to immediate scoring drives by the Lions. You take 14 points off the board from those turnovers and maybe just replace it with 2 field goals, let's say. It's a completely different ball game, and the Bengals have a chance to win that. I'm being Mr. Positive Bengals guy today just because I got to meet you guys halfway a little bit. But the bottom line is Joe Flacco, will he turn it over? Yes. Will he turn it over as much as Jake Browning? No. I think just that alone puts the Bengals in a better position to where they're going to be similar to last year, where they're at least going to have a chance in the fourth quarter. That's the problem for the Bengals against against the Vikings. It's 48-10. You lose. That game was over just a quarter and a half in. There was no battle it out down the stretch. The Broncos just destroyed them. They embarrassed them. The Lions embarrassed them because the Bengals just couldn't get any footing whatsoever. Joe Flacco will turn it over, yes, but not nearly as much, which means there's going to be a lot more effective drives, and they're going to ultimately stay in the game. Will they give up points? Yes, but they're going to start scoring points again at a higher clip, and it's going to kind of be reminiscent of last year. The problem is last year was kind of a tough pill to swallow. So the positive spin I'm going to put on this is Joe Flacco. He's not as bad as Jake Browning when it comes to the turnovers. They'll still be there. You're going to be on the edge of your seat. The margin for error is still going to be slim, but they're going to have enough pop with those wide receivers that they're going to be able to make some plays. I'm confident that Joe Flacco is going to make some plays with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And you could say, well, that's a real hot take, Kenner. But we've seen Jamar Chase disappear with backup quarterbacks. Not this past Sunday. This past Sunday, Jamar was great. But Jamar was non-existent those first couple of weeks with Jake Browning. Non-existent. The numbers show it. And I've been through this before. Jamar Chase is very dependent on Joe Burrow throwing him the football. But that was a monster game this past Sunday. I can't ignore that. But up until this past Sunday, Jamar Chase, when Joe Burrow's not throwing him the football, he disappears. I told you, he had in the 7 games without Joe Burrow before this year, he had 1 touchdown in 7 games and averaged 57 yards a game. The guy just disappeared. He didn't disappear this past Sunday. And I think playing with Joe Flacco is a much different story. I still don't think getting Joe Flacco was worth giving up any kind of draft picks for. I don't think that, you might win 1 or 2 more additional games because of Joe Flacco, but we're still talking about a team that's going to win anywhere between 5 to 7 games. And ultimately, I think that puts you in not a bad spot. I mean, but you're not going to get as good of a draft pick as what you would if you would have just rode this thing out. But it's the final. It's a Hail Mary in the first quarter. That's the problem. Getting Joe Flacco right now, 4 weeks into the season, 5 weeks into the season, it's a Hail Mary in the first quarter. This isn't a move that was done at the deadline or getting him late in the season like the Browns did a few years ago in week 11. This is doing this a month and some change into the season. It's a Hail Mary attempt to save the season in the first quarter. Plenty of time left to ride the ship, but the problem is the quarterback's not going to fix the run game, not going to fix the offensive line, not going to fix the defense. That's going to have to happen through progression throughout the season, and we'll see if it ultimately happens. I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm intrigued by the Bengals, though, on Sunday. Like, I'm not going to put money on the Bengals to win, but I don't think they get beat by more than 14. I think the Bengals cover. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I'll screenshot it and put it up on the page. I do think that the Bengals cover on Sunday, and I think it's going to be a close game in Green Bay. I think that right now what you are seeing is a team that's going to be rejuvenized just by Joe Flacco's presence. I think, water will find its level at some point. I think that the Bengals will start to deteriorate again, maybe a week, 2 weeks down the road, but I think they're going to ride this high a little bit and kind of feel just a new resurgence of confidence with the addition of Joe Flacco. So that's my positive takeaway on this. I don't think it fixes a ton of problems. I don't think that it puts this team in position to be back to a playoff contender. This team's not making the playoffs. Joe Burrow will not play another quarter this season, nor should he. And that's kind of where I'm at. But I'm happy about this because from a sports talk radio perspective, it makes the Bengals interesting. And the Bengals have not been interesting the last couple of weeks. They're interesting right now. And that's all I'm asking for at this point. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. I'm sorry. I see calls coming in. I can't get them when I'm on the air. But now that we're going to step away for a few moments, I'll be glad to get your calls and get your spot in line and get you on hold so that we can take your calls when we come back. Or you can let your takes be known on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. Let it be known in the chat. I'll read your comments when we come back. Take your calls when we come back. The Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. And we are back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. Bengals and Packers coming up this weekend. And of course, as we talked about, I mean, the Bengals, who are 1-4 right now, when you look at this upcoming matchup, ESPN Bet, that sports book right there has this line as a 14.5-point line in favor of Green Bay. The home team, the Bengals, have lost 3 straight games, and all 3 of those have been by double digits. They have been blown out and embarrassed in 3 straight, and they're trying to put an end not just to the losing streak, but the embarrassment streak. But they're going to have their hands full with the Packers coming up. Now, the Packers are coming off of a bye week, but before that, they had that 40-40 tie with the Dallas Cowboys. And we saw, and Dallas's defense is not very good. Statistically, the Bengals defense is worse. In Jordan Love and company, I mean, they ran all over that Cowboys defense. They, threw all over that Cowboys defense. And I think it's going to be something similar this Sunday against, the Bengals. Now, the thing is, everyone is acting like Joe Flacco, Joe Burr to another Joe Burr type of quarterback here is just going to come in and all of a sudden just dominate offensively. I think they're going to be better offensively than what they were with Jake Browning, but enough to go at a Packers offense that is going to have its way with the Bengals defense. That's going to be a tough ask for Joe Flacco, making his first start, not of the season, but his first start with the Cincinnati Bengals coming up this weekend. So the question I have, 937-518-1410, is the addition of Joe Flacco, is the addition of Joe Flacco for the Bengals at quarterback, is that enough to salvage the season? 937-518-1410. Now, Bengals fans, we'll get to you in a moment, but we got to go to the one, the only. Yeah. That's right. Steve from Springboro, dude. How are you? Happy Wednesday.
What up, bro?
How's it going?
Trust me, their problem is the offensive line. And if they think that Flacco can just stand back there and check it, he ain't going to have time. He can't move. He moves like he's got concrete cleats on. He's, I'm not anti-Joe. I know he's with us. And 2 years ago, we had that magical run. He just doesn't have it. Why they did it is I'm going to piggyback off everything you said yesterday. Yeah, he's going to throw it up there, and maybe Higgins and Chase can make some fantastic. They might put up a few more points, but that defense is like a sieve. They're going to give it up, and it ain't going to matter. So, and like you said yesterday, piggybacking off of that, they have no running game, so they can't run the ball. You got to be able to run the ball and play defense. We do have one side of it defensively. Now, getting to our team, I would have really liked to seen last week getting the W because of the teams we got coming up with our defense.
Yep.
And the way Q is running the ball, I love that kid. I think he's going to be something pretty special for us. But there's no quarterbacks coming up in this next spring's draft that are franchise quarterbacks. You know that. I know that. We're going to have to get a couple bookend tackles because our tackles suck. Conklin, when he plays, but he's like a saltine cracker, man. Every little break comes along and he's out he's been that way the last 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
Got to get the left side straightened out. Batonio's getting a little long in the tooth. I love the heart the guy's had. He's a 12-year vet. He's been a Pro Bowler when Thomas was there. He's been playing hurt. Postic's all right. Teller's okay, but their contracts are going to come up. So we're going to have to address that. Isn't it amazing how in pro football you can never seem to get both sides of the ball straightened out? You get the defensive side straightened out where they're a top 5, top 3 like what we've got, and then the offense stinks. And you get the offense lined up, and the defense is getting long in the tooth. You start getting injuries and age there. It just seems like you can't ever get the bounce. You know what I mean?
No, Steve, I always compare it to, being a Reds fan. Right now, the Reds have all the pitching, and they don't have the offense. And I fear that by the time they get this lineup figured out, then when they start scoring runs, they're going to be giving up the equal amount of runs, and it's going to be the same story, just the different side. And I feel like you're right. With Cleveland, it's every time they have the offense, the defense is bad. And then every time they have the defense, the offense is trying to get it figured out. You're right. Never, at no point, and this goes for the Bengals and most teams, it's so difficult to find that balance. And that's why the Eagles are so dang good.
Yeah,
they're not
exactly
the best offensive team, but they're the most balanced team. And that's what these teams are striving to be at this point.
And I'm telling you something else, just my opinion. I want to tell you, whoever wins the AFC North away, and nobody's really running away in the AFC or the NFC.
No.
You might possibly have both teams playing in the Super Bowl in February with possibly 4 losses, maybe even 5. I feel that. I really, this year seems to be another year of parity, more so than years past.
That's why I
And
was so
think
bummed about that Browns loss last Sunday, because I'm not.
that's what
I'm
I
not.
mean.
I'm
Had
not.
we
Yeah,
won that,
I'm not
had
guaranteeing
we
that
won
they're.
that, yeah, had we won that with the games we got coming up, we could stack some wins.
Yep.
Maybe Dylan Gabriel gets a little better. I'm not saying he's Joe Montana by any means, but if you can run the ball and play defense, we got no wideouts that,
None.
go back to the old days. Take these stupid gloves off. How about spitting on your hand and rub your hand together? See, you might be able to catch a football then. You know what I mean? These
It's
guys
painful.
nowadays.
It's painful. Jerry Judy's been a big disappointment. I went out
Yes,
on a
he has.
limb and praised him coming in. I
Tillman,
felt,
Tillman's another one. Yep.
he's good when he's out
And why
there.
they
He's just
don't-
never out there.
And why they don't go more to Njoku, the guy's a stud on it. Put him on Kansas City's team. He would be probably as good as Kelsey, if not better. He's younger. He's more athletic, I think. He would be putting up all kinds of phenomenal numbers with Kansas City or the Detroit Lions even.
Yep.
So, but if we can string some wins here together, and Gabriel don't turn the ball over, and who knows what might happen. But I think, honest to God, I think the AFC North, whoever wins it, it'll be a losing record, and it has happened in the NFL. There have been sub 500 teams who have won the division and made the playoffs. Seattle Seahawks did it. It's been a while back.
When
I
they
think the
hosted.
Saints did it.
Yeah, and there were people mad about them hosting. Like that. That was the frustrating part.
And of course, the NFL loves that because it keeps the people coming, buying the $10 beers and the plastic cups, paying $30 a part, paying the astronomical part, for the tickets. So, but I'm not, me. Till the day I die, I'm going to believe Brown and Orton, baby. You've known me long enough to know. Slimmer knew me, knew how I was. He was with me before sports bars. The year they went 0-16, they were playing Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. And I was right there fighting till the last, till there was no time left on the clock. So, I'm going to stay with them till the day I die, man. Go Browns. I think they can get Pittsburgh at Pittsburgh. It's way overdue. I can't remember how long it's been since they beat Pittsburgh there. But law of averages, surely we can get one. Pittsburgh's not no super team either. You know what I'm saying?
No, Pittsburgh's 6.5-point
we'll
favorite on Sunday at home. So we'll see. But yeah.
All right, man. Later.
All right, the true American, Steve from Springboro. There you have it. Haven't heard from him in a minute, but glad he called in. He was out at the show last week. By the way, speaking of the Sunday morning tailgate show, which Keith Byers and I, we were every Sunday throughout the NFL season. We make a stop at different Frickers locations. In years past, we've always been at the same one over in Miamisburg. This year, we're touring all the Frickers locations every Sunday at a different spot. This Sunday, we will be at the Frickers in Troy. So this Sunday, Frickers in Troy, we will be setting up out there for the Sunday morning tailgate show, and we'll recap college football Saturday, and then getting you set for that day's slate of NFL games. Browns Steelers coming up, and then of course the Bengals and the Packers. So a ton to get into as we build up for those two games coming up this weekend, and then Ohio State, Illinois, top 25 matchup. That's a noon kickoff, and we'll have all that for you right here on 1410 ESPN Radio as well. But yeah, so now onto the Cleveland side with all of this as well. And kind of, I want to go back. Last thing on the Joe Flacco thing. Let me ask you, because a lot of people are talking like, oh man, Joe Flacco is going to a much better situation in Cincinnati. A much better situation as far as what? And no, I don't want to I don't want to repeat a lot of the same talking points that we've been bringing up, but I do wonder if Joe, and it's a better situation because he's starting right now. But let me ask you, if Joe Flacco was a free agent again and both teams wanted him, which is the better spot? Because you could sit there and say, well, no, it's Cincinnati easily because he's throwing to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. But yeah, those are the weapons he'll be throwing to. But that offensive line at his age it's not suitable for him, and he can't hand it off. They can't run the football. Now, then there's Cleveland, and I'm not saying that's a great place to be either, but they don't have a Jamar Chase or T. Higgins. They don't have anyone to throw the football to, but they also have an offensive line. They have tight ends, and they have running backs that they can hand it off to, and they have an elite defense. I get everyone saying, oh man, Joe Flacco is going to a much better situation. I see where you're going with that, but I just wholeheartedly disagree. I don't think that Joe Flacco has been traded to a better situation. I think we simplify it to quarterback, wide receivers, who he's throwing to. But I think that it needs to start up front. I mean, who's protecting him? And then it needs to start to who's behind him, who's he handing it off to? And then you could look down the field of who he's throwing to. And who he's throwing to is unbelievable. But I still think that in Cleveland, it was bad, but the offensive line was better and the running game was better and the defense is better. But man, oh man, I don't know. But Joe Flacco, just imagine having the career that he has, and you're going to end it playing for the two biggest jokes of franchises in the NFL when it comes to the perception of these teams, and the Browns and the Bengals. Who knows? I doubt we see Joe Flacco make it through the whole season in Cincinnati, not because I don't think he's good enough, but because I don't think he's going to be sturdy enough. I think he's going to get hit. He's going to get hit a lot. And then all of a sudden you're going to have to go back to Jake Browning, who you've already killed mentally. So his confidence is going to be through the roof. So there you go. As far as the Browns go, when it comes to Dillon Gabriel, and I said this yesterday, I said it on the Sunday show, when I was sitting with Keith earlier in the week. As we sit here right now, I was bummed that the Browns lost, no doubt about it, but I felt good. I felt good about the way Dillon Gabriel looked this past Sunday. Dillon Gabriel is not Joe Burrow. Dillon Gabriel is not Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. Very well aware of that. But Dillon Gabriel looked like an NFL quarterback this Sunday. Now, it was a vanilla playbook that they threw out there for him. I think the vanilla playbook is more so coming from the lack of options and the ability to throw down the field, not because he doesn't have the talent, but because they don't have the talent. There's no one to throw the ball to. You're throwing to an undrafted guy in Isaiah Bond. All right. Jerry Jeudy's just completely disappeared. Cedric Tillman can't stay healthy. And, like I said, when you start to look at how the targets were being distributed throughout that game plan, it was a lot of, he was giving a ton of looks to Harold Fannin Jr., the rookie tight end, and he was giving a ton of looks, of course, to David Njoku, who he connected with in the end zone. He connected with both tight ends in the end zone. And, of course, it was a lot of passes to Quinshon Judkins in the backfield. So, you know what I mean? That you could say, oh, it's a vanilla play calling and people are getting mad at Kevin Stefanski, but you're not going to call up plays to go downfield when you don't have anyone to go downfield with. This is a roster problem at this point. But I really liked how he looked, and he reminded me a lot of Bo Nix. And I'm not saying I'm a big Bo Nix fan, but Bo Nix is a winning quarterback in the National Football League. You could win with that style of quarterback. The problem for Cleveland is that's not the quarterback that you've been striving to get to take you to the promised land. But at the same time, when you look at Dorian Thompson-Robinson, all right, when you look at what they were trotting out there last year and the year before, and even with your expensive quarterback in Deshaun Watson, I mean, they would have, if Deshaun Watson could have just looked like Dillon Gabriel that in last year, Browns fans would have been just pleased with that. All right, so Dillon Gabriel, I mean, maybe this is a me problem too as a Browns fan. That's the best version of a quarterback we've seen in quite some time. So I'm sitting here saying, hey, I didn't think it looked bad. But at the same time, he didn't turn the ball over. He didn't put the Browns in bad spots. He got it to the open targets when they were there. Did a good job of making sure that they executed the game plan. They had a chance to win that. I'm not blaming the defense, but the defense, I mean, we knew that was kind of crazy that the defense, as dominant as they've been, of course, they were the ones to sit there and let that Vikings offense go on that super long run to drain the clock and leave basically 24 seconds left on there. So that was unfortunate, no doubt about it. But is what it is. I'm not saying the defense lost in that game, but kudos to the Vikings because they did something that they had not done all game, and that's go on that very long drive, and the defense just couldn't get off the field. The defense gets them off that field. They hand the ball off to Quinshon. They eat a lot of that clock, and they go on to win that football game, which would have been huge. I think the Browns are going to finish with 7 wins. Normally 9 wins does not get you into the postseason. I think it does this season, and I think that we're going to look at the losses against Cincinnati in week 1 and that Vikings loss as missed opportunities throughout the season. Because when they win this coming up weekend, it's going to tick me off. I think that there's a good chance they could beat Pittsburgh, and I'm going to be happy when they beat Pittsburgh, but also you couldn't beat Cincinnati. Right? You couldn't beat Minnesota when you had the chance. You had 2 teams beat. You had the Bengals beat. You had the Vikings beat. All right? You deserve to lose the Lions. You deserve to lose against the Ravens. But you had 2 games that you should be, a 500 team right now, and they're not. And they have no one to blame it themselves. I'm not even making excuses. I'm not even doing the woulda, coulda, shoulda. I'm just saying, that's how close that they are to being a team viewed completely different. We're sitting here talking about how bad this team is for 4 quarters. They've actually been pretty good for 3.5 quarters. They were very good against Cincinnati. They were good against Minnesota until the very end. When you had the special teams mistakes and the turnovers against Cincinnati from Joe Flacco, the savior, by the way, Joe Flacco. And then, of course, and by the way, I'm not a hypocrite. Those were 2 turnovers that were caused by the wide receivers, not Joe Flacco. So I'll defend Joe Flacco there. But you see my point. It's such a tight margin in this league. But we're going to step away for a few moments. Steve from Springboro, who called in, brought up a good point about the parity in the league and just the layout of the AFC. I'm going to do one more positive about the Cincinnati Bengals when we come back. The chances that they truly have of making the playoffs are those chances still alive? We'll talk about that when we come back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits.
sincerely cares about you. Apply online at kth.net. An equal opportunity employer.
All right, and we are back. I'm Justin Kinner with you here, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. A couple more minutes as we wrap up this hour of the show, of course. I'll tell you how you can win $2,000 coming up here around the corner if you listen every day, but every weekday between noon and 5. If you listen to the Rich Eisen Show and the Justin Kinner Show twice an hour, you'll be listening for those winning words that you'll enter at wingam.com for your chance to win $2,000. $2,000 a day giveaway. Of course, you'll have multiple chances throughout each hour between the Rich Eisen Show and the Justin Kinner Show. So make sure you're keeping an ear out for those words, and you can enter that at wingam.com. So, because I'm so negative, and I got a couple emails from after yesterday's show, because every time I start to get a little over the top, people don't like that, and then they send emails to my boss and telling him how they need to fire me and blah, 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 blah. So, Mr. Positivity here. So I got to find something nice to say about your Crybaby Bengals every single day, just to try to balance this out, right? So that's what I'm doing. Got to keep the bosses happy. We got new bosses now, and the new bosses are, they're a little extra whiny when it comes to my negativity, so I got to appease them. So whatever, here you go. But in my search for a positive spin on the Cincinnati Bengals, here's what I found. Take a look at the AFC North, or the AFC, I'm sorry, right now in general. Like, right now, the best team in the AFC, as far as the most consistent team from week 1 to now, is the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are 4-1. Daniel Jones is leading the way there. The Bills are 4-1. They've technically been the best team in football, but they are coming off that interesting loss against the Patriots this past Sunday. But as good as the Bills have looked, they showed just how vulnerable that they can be. Pittsburgh is sitting as the third best team right now. I mean, the playoff picture is so stupid to be looking at a month and some change in, 5 weeks into the season, but that's where we are at. The Steelers are sitting at number 3 right now as the third best team in the AFC. And then there's the Chargers at 4, the Jaguars. By the way, the Jaguars are 4-1. Good for them. Their only loss coming against the Cincinnati Bengals. Guys, if they would have beat the Bengals like it appeared that they were well on their way to doing, the Jaguars would be 5-0 sitting atop the entire AFC right now. In fact, they'd be the only undefeated team. That's how good that the Jaguars have been this season to start. But we also don't look at the Jaguars as being very good. They didn't look elite against Cincinnati, but that's the team that's going out there and winning football games, and they got a big staple win against the Chiefs this past Sunday. And then you got the Patriots. The Patriots are 3-2. They look at all if you look at the playoff picture right now, the Colts, Bills, Steelers, Chargers are teams 1 through 4. The Jags, Broncos, Patriots, 5, 6, and 7. Outside of the Bills, there is not a team in the current playoffs right now in the top 7 spots. There is not a team outside of the Bills that I would guarantee will be in the postseason at the very end of the year. Like, you know what I mean? Like if the playoffs started today, your 1 seed would be the Colts, your 7 seed would be the Patriots, and then the Broncos at 6, Jags at 5, Chargers at 4, Steelers at 3, Bills at 10. My point is the Colts, if I had to bet my life savings that they will actually be in the playoffs at the end of the year, I wouldn't do it. I think they're solid. It's a heck of a start, but like for me to guarantee that this is a postseason team, I don't know. I think that the teams, I have more confidence that the teams outside of the playoff picture right now, I have more confidence in the teams that aren't in the playoffs right now than the teams that actually are. I'm not 1,000,000,000% confident that the Jaguars are going to ultimately be in the postseason at the end of the year. They're 4-1. The Patriots are 3-2. I'm not feeling all warm and fuzzy about them. They're solid. I like their coach. Drake May looks like he's getting better each and every week, but like there's still question marks regarding them. Denver, they were supposed to be this Super Bowl contending elite team. They're 3-2. I know they, I know they took care of business against the Bengals on Monday Night Football last week, but like at the end of the day, I look at them and I'm like, they're not world beaters either. The Chargers are inconsistent. I want to believe in them. I'm a big Justin Herbert guy, but like they're 3-2. They're not popping off the base. The Steelers are 3-1. They were 4-2 last year, and we all know how that season ended for them. So my point is, I'm more confident on the teams outside of the playoff picture than the teams inside. I'm more confident that the Baltimore Ravens at 1-4, once they get Lamar Jackson right, I'm more confident in them riding the ship than I am Jacksonville, which is crazy because the Ravens are 1-4, and man, that defense has been bad, but I'm still more confident in them than the teams that are in. I look at Kansas City, they're 2-3. They just lost to the Jaguars. I'm still confident that they're going to make the playoffs. I'm more confident in them than the teams who are currently in right now. The Houston Texans, I still like the Houston Texans. I think that I'm more confident in the Texans with their deficiencies and all. I'm more confident in them to make the postseason than the teams who are currently sitting in those 7 spots right now. And then I look at the Bengals. They're 2-3. They're a game under 500, but the problem is all they're a game under 500 after starting out 2-0. They're 2-3. They've lost 3 straight in embarrassing fashion. Let's just pretend that Joe Flacco does come in and he does for the Bengals what he did for the Browns 2 years ago. Let's just pretend that Joe Flacco has another miracle run left in him. This AFC is not very good. Like I said, I'm more confident in the teams who aren't sitting in a playoff spot right now than the teams who are in. The Bengals aren't in a playoff spot. I'm not saying I feel really confident in them because I think they have too many deficiencies and they don't have Joe Burrow. But again, I'm not sold on the Steelers. I'm not sold on the Colts. I'm not sold on the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm not sold on the Patriots. The Chiefs are 2-3. The Ravens are 1-4. The Texans are 2-3. I have more confidence in those 3 teams right there than I do the Colts, who are sitting all the way at the top, then the Jaguars, who are sitting at 4-1 at the 5 spot, then the obviously the Chargers, who are 3-2, the Patriots 3-2, Denver 3-2. I'm more confident in the teams on the outside than the teams. So Cincinnati, you go and you pull off a miracle and you beat the Packers coming up this Sunday, and you're 3-3. The Bengals are then going to be viewed as an average contending team, contending with an average Patriots team, an average Broncos and Jaguars team, an average Steelers team, an average Colts team. I think the only team that I think is a legit contender that is playing like it is the Bills. I know they're coming off a loss, but I think that the Bills are the only team that was viewed as a Super Bowl contender coming into the year and has actually played like it out of the AFC. No one looked at the Colts as a Super Bowl contender. No one looked at the Jaguars as a Super Bowl contender. People looked at Denver as a dark horse Super Bowl contender. They don't look like a Super Bowl contending team right now. They look flawed. They're solid, but they're flawed. The Kansas City Chiefs, they've been to 3 straight Super Bowls. Of course, they're a Super Bowl contender, but they don't look like it. The Ravens, Super Bowl contender coming into the season, they don't look like it. The Bills, they look like it. That's it. Outside of the Bills, there's not one team that you could definitively say is good enough to make the playoffs, but there's also a lot of teams that you can't say are definitively bad enough to miss it. So for that reason and that reason alone, the entire AFC outside of the Bills is a wild card. And then that extends the shelf life of the Bengals. On a normal year, if Denver was who they were supposed to be, if the Chiefs are who they're supposed to be, if the Ravens are who they're supposed to be, you know what I mean? And then you have the Bills and the Chargers. That's 5, 6, 7 teams. That's 6 teams right there, all being who they're supposed to be. There's no way in hell the Bengals would have a shot. But as long as every team is playing below their expectations right now, that's just keeping the Bengals alive. And Joe Flacco extends the shelf life of your guys' hopes as this season continues. So that is my daily dose of positivity. I had to dig down deep to find it, but I think that's it right there. That's something you should feel good about, that there's still a chance. You're 2-3. You're 2-3. You got your doors blown off by Denver. Denver is 1 game better than you. Right? Like, you look at Jacksonville, which is crazy. You beat Jacksonville, but Jacksonville is 4-1. And yet I still am not sold on Jacksonville. I'm looking up at the Patriots. I don't fear the Patriots. I don't fear any team in the AFC right now outside of Buffalo. The Colts are interesting. I will say that. They're getting very, very solid quarterback play. They can run the heck out of the football. And, hey, I don't know if anyone has noticed this or not, but that Lou Anarumo defense looks pretty damn good. Has anyone noticed that? Has anyone noticed how good that Lou Anarumo defense is? I've noticed it. Have you noticed it? I've noticed it. Pretty dang good. Let's go to Ed. Ed in Dayton. How are you, sir?
Hey, pretty good, Justin. Hey, did the Browns bring some extra receivers in to training? It seems like they should have. Somebody. I can't believe they're this at the wide receiver position. And can they possibly trade Deshaun Watson and get a receiver?
Ed, I'm going to drop you real quick. If you could call back, I want to continue that conversation. You're just cutting out, and I could barely pick up on what you were saying, but nonetheless, Yeah, let's step away. I believe you asked about Deshaun Watson. I do want to touch on the Deshaun Watson thing because I find that to be interesting enough. But no, the Browns have not made any kind of major moves to address the wide receiver position, but I don't think those moves exist out there for them to fix it to begin with. I don't think that move exists out there. That's the problem for Cleveland right now, is that they're trying to find out if either of their two rookie quarterbacks have what it takes to compete and win in this league. And the problem is they just they want to know if their chefs can cook, but they haven't given them any good ingredients to make a good meal with. That's the problem. Hour 2 coming up next.
lanceroofing.com.
All right, we are back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Every time the Browns, anytime there's any headlines when it comes to the Browns and the quarterback situation, it always stems back to Shedeur. And man, how about this? According to ESPN's Adam Schefter, Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski is continued to remain non-committal on whether rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders or practice squad quarterback Bailey Zappi would be the team's backup quarterback. So Kevin Stefanski, even with Joe Flacco, and Stefanski today said too, by the way, it was a surprise that Joe Flacco, when they heard that Joe Flacco was going to be traded away, it was a surprise even to him and the coaching staff. They weren't expecting that. They weren't expecting that at all. They thought that Joe Flacco was going to remain, the number 2 quarterback, the backup to help continue to have that veteran presence in that QB room for the rookie quarterbacks and to have that QB, that veteran presence there in case, anything turns left with these quarterbacks. But the bottom line is, if you're Cleveland, you have to know what you have. And at a certain point, when if the Browns would have won in week 2 against the Bengals, and then they would beat the Packers, it would have been 2-1 to start the season, 2-2, and then you have that you beat the Vikings, you're 3-2, and you're right there with the top of some of the top teams in the league as we sit here 5 weeks in, but you've lost those, so you're not really technically playing for the playoffs. I know you want to continue to compete, but at the same time, you're trying to accomplish 2 different things, and you can't accomplish both going the route that they were doing. Playing Joe Flacco on a team that's 1-4 just made no sense. When you drafted 2 rookies in last year's draft and you have 2 first-rounders next year, and although the quarterback class looks like it absolutely stinks a month and some change into the college football season, you still need to know. You have to know what you have at quarterback, because you can't have another season where you're just continuing to roll out these what would then be second-year quarterbacks just for nothing. And we also have kind of forgot about the fact that there's one interesting name kind of lingering in the background that's set to make a return here in the next couple of weeks, and that is none other than everyone's favorite Browns quarterback, Deshaun Watson. So, yeah, that he's healed up at a rapid rate, and they're not, I think one reason why they're being non-committal on who the true number 2 quarterback is. Here's why I think that Kevin Stefanski is non-committal on making Shedeur Sanders the backup quarterback. I think if you announce that Shedeur Sanders is the backup quarterback to Dylan Gabriel right now, then in a few weeks when Deshaun Watson comes back, it's going to create so much noise when you name him the backup quarterback and move Shedeur back down the depth chart. If I'm Kevin Stefanski, I keep him at 3. I make Bailey Zappi, the veteran quarterback, the backup. And then in a few weeks when Deshaun comes back, they got to decide, hey, we know these rookies aren't it, and we know that next year's draft class isn't it either, and we're just going to continue to trot out Deshaun Watson and hope that there's just something left in the tank from the Houston days. It's not the right response in regards Cleveland just has so many bad options. That's the problem. And now you may say, well, Kenner, yesterday you said it's a win-win no matter what. I'm saying all of this based on what the coaching staff knows. If the coaching staff knows that they don't have faith in these 2 quarterbacks, Shedeur and Dylan Gabriel, then they could just continue to trot out Deshaun Watson and try to get their money's worth at the end of the day. Or if they feel like there's something to work with there, then they'll continue to do it. I think what they're afraid of, if you make Shedeur the 2, and when Watson comes back, you can't have Watson as the 3rd string quarterback. It's going to be odd enough whenever he's named the backup quarterback, which means the storyline's not Deshaun Watson named backup quarterback in Cleveland. It's Shedeur Sanders demoted back down to 3rd string. That will be the story. That's what I think Cleveland's trying to avoid. Cleveland could have avoided this by not drafting him to begin with, but I think that's what Cleveland is trying to avoid. Trying to avoid the headline, Shedeur Sanders, move down the depth chart when Deshaun comes back. But if you keep him at 3rd, and put Bailey Zappi at 2, when Deshaun comes back, he's now the backup quarterback, and you just demote Zappi. No one gives a crap about Zappi. Nobody cares about Zappi. So when there won't be one outlet out there that'll be like, can you believe that they demoted Bailey Zappi? No, that's not going to be the headline at all. The headline will be Cleveland Browns demote Shedeur Sanders upon the arrival or the return of Deshaun Watson. And I think that's what this is about. I think that they're trying to prevent putting Shedeur in that backup spot because I think they know the hell that they've created as far as that goes. Watson's coming back very, very soon. And what they do with him is going to be crazy because nobody's going to try. So let's go back. I think Ed, thanks for holding, Ed. Ed, you called back. I appreciate that. I think you were asking about Deshaun. I'll let you get your Deshaun question out.
Well, now that I didn't know he was coming back this quick, but if Haslam didn't tell Stefanski about the trade to Flacco, that's your problem right there. That's crazy. Well, I mean, why wouldn't he tell the head coach that he wants to trade a player?
I don't think it was a ownership thing. I mean, whatchamacallit? I mean, ownership had a role in this. Don't get me wrong. But Andrew Berry, I mean, it's not like Andrew Berry didn't know it happened. It would be more of a storyline to me if Andrew Berry didn't know that Joe Flacco was traded. Andrew Berry's the one that did the trade. That's Andrew Berry's job. A lot of times coaches aren't always all in the know. And also, I don't feel bad for Kevin Stefanski. I'm not anti-Stefanski, but also when you've lost as many games as he has, he kind of doesn't have the pull with the franchise to be able to demand that he's kept in the loop. It's not like it was Belichick in New England or Andy Reid at Kansas City. You know what I mean? Like those coaches would be in on the possibility of moving players. I just don't think Stefanski's at that level that he should be included in those conversations, but who knows?
Well, it seems like before the trade deadline, I don't know when it's done, but it seems like they should be able to trade somebody, put a package together, get a couple of receivers or a receiver, or why didn't they bring more free agent receivers into camp and pick one of them? I can't believe that the Browns don't have better receivers at this point.
I mean, well, look, I'm a big Cedric Tillman fan. When Cedric Tillman's out there, Ed, Cedric Tillman's really good. Jerry Jeudy last year was really good. Jerry Jeudy this year stinks. I don't think I think that they thought that they had enough of a balanced offense. It wasn't going to be the best offense in the league, but they thought when you have David Njoku, Harold Fannin Jr., and then what you expected with Cedric Tillman and what you got last year from Jerry Jeudy mixed with that O-line and that run game, I think they just expected more offensive production as opposed to the absolute zilch that they've gotten. Tillman's out and injured. Don't know when he's coming back. He's on the IR. Judy's just a non-factor. The targets, when you look at the way the ball's been distributed, it's all to the tight ends and it's all to the running backs. They just don't have any good wide receivers outside of those two. And also they weren't going to they don't have a ton of money to spend. They weren't going to be able to spend the money on a Keenan Allen. They did the Amari Cooper thing. That wasn't going to work. So there was just no other free agents out there that they were going to be able to bring in to make an impact.
Right. Well, hopefully they can give the Pittsburgh a game, but we'll see what happens. I totally think that Green Bay is going to at least beat the Bengals by 2 touchdowns. So we'll see what happens there too. Because I just don't think
the Bengals cover. Do you think the Bengals cover?
Well, he hasn't even. How many times is he going to practice with the offense? I mean, they got to leave for Green Bay tomorrow. Or the next, I mean, he doesn't have enough time to even know the playbook, I wouldn't think.
I get that, but
that's the crazy thing about it. I mean, you can. I just think there's going to be a lot of communication errors.
No doubt. But Flacco's also been in the league for 20 years. I think he could possibly pick up on it. I mean, when he went to Cleveland, they signed him off his couch and started a week later and threw. I mean, I think he had like 7 of the 8 games. He threw for 300 or more yards in every one of those. I think he'll be fine from that perspective. I just don't think he's going to be fine because of the lack of, stability around him. No offensive line, no run game, and that type of stuff. So we'll see.
All right, Justin. Hey, thanks for getting me on. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, Ed. Take care. All right, good stuff. All right, it's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. I want to talk about the Guardians. I want to talk some baseball. We all know, being fans of any team in the state of Ohio when it comes to professional baseball, that it could be, very frustrating. But I want to go back. I want to talk about Ramirez and the fact that he did what most pro athletes never do, and that's give his team a hometown discount. And not only give his team a hometown discount, but did it believing that his team was going to operate in good faith and use the money that they saved due to his hometown discount to put a competitor and a contender around him. And that ultimately has not happened. And to his credit, he has made it be known, talking about Jose Ramirez here, just recently dropped a bomb on a recent podcast, calling out his front office, basically throwing them under the bus, basically saying, hey, you know what? When it comes to, this is the quote, things are going to change for the 2028 extension talks. The general manager didn't do what he talked about back then. They were supposed to take advantage of my discount and build a team to win. And yet Cleveland continued to remain in the bottom 5 of spending in baseball. Cleveland, I mean, the fact that they went on that miraculous run this past season to make the postseason, which was, when I say miraculous, it was miraculous. The Reds backdoored their way into the postseason. The Guardians just went and dominated their way to get in. The Guardians were a fantastic story. That's on me. We need to talk more Guardians baseball. That's on me for not talking Guardians baseball. I don't look at it as I'm not talking Guardians baseball. We need to make time for that. That was a hell of a storyline, and I didn't do a good job of highlighting that story nonetheless. But Ramirez is a stand-up dude. Professional athletes now, like I'm always torn on this. I wish from a fan perspective, I wish athletes would give their teams hometown discounts. I wish that every athlete wasn't trying to take every dollar that's available out there. Now people say, well, don't you pursue every dollar that's available to you as well? And yes, but I think that the chump change that we're fighting for as common folk, it's not the same thing to sit there and put it on the same scale as guys who are making millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. I hate when people try to oversimplify. Well, in your job, do you take less for the better of the company? No, my job's not the same. It's not even close to being the same. And I'm not being a hypocrite. I'm not going to feel bad because instead of taking 40 million, you took 35 million. And you know what I mean? Like I'm sorry, but like when athletes try to do that, I got a family to feed, that Blake Snell BS from a few years ago, and all that stuff. I'm not playing that game. I'm not going to pretend to care. From that perspective, I just don't get down that way. So from a fan's perspective, you're not going to tell somebody who makes the level of money that we as common folk do that we need to care about every penny that they make, because technically, and I've never understood this, we always fight for our athletes to make as much money as they can. But technically, when your athletes make every dollar that they have coming to them, it almost hurts you in the back end. And it's not technically the player's fault, but the players know the ramifications of it. It's, hey, my team, it's not that they can't put a contender around me if I take every dime coming to me, but I know they have the inability to do it. So, and people will say, well, it's not up to the player, it's up to the organization to get it right. I completely agree. But what then happens is as a player, when you take every dime that comes to you, what you can't do is take every dime that comes to you, playing for an organization that you know is horrendous at roster construction and handling cap and all that stuff. And some of this sounds like I'm talking football, and I kind of am. What you can't do is take every dollar that's coming to you and then complain about the lack of weapons around you. And then people will do the do-gooder thing and say, well, it's up to the organization to get it right. You're right, but we all know most organizations, certain ones definitely don't get it right. In Cleveland, this is why I was so furious. We're talking baseball here. When the Guardians announced the cheap contract that they were able to get Jose Ramirez under a few years ago, I said, of all the teams to get a hometown discount, that team deserved it the least. The Guardians don't try financially. To their credit, they draft well, they develop well. And they draft and develop well almost to a fault, because then they just sit back and rely on that and say, see, we don't need to spend money because we can get rid of guys like Trevor Bauer and Bieber, and we can get rid of all these big names. And these big names, if they left any other organization, it would cripple that organization. The Guardians, they're a well-oiled machine. They keep moving on from top pitcher after top pitcher because they have great pitching coming up through the system, and that's awesome about what the Guardians do, and I'm jealous of that as a Reds fan. But what the Guardians do is because they do so well in that department, instead of looking at it as, man, we draft well, we develop well, imagine if we complemented this with some dollars. Imagine how good we could be then. And I'm not saying spend $300 million a year like the Dodgers and the Mets. I'm saying, hey, I don't know, why don't you spend 150, 160, which would still be around that, like the 15th or 14th highest spending team in baseball. Not asking much. But when you have a team like the Guardians that has spent in the bottom 5, if you go all the way back to 2018, they have been in the bottom 5 in spending going all the way back to 2018 every year. And this is a team that has recently got to the American League Championship Series. This is a team that made the playoffs this year. They missed it 2 years ago and made it the year before. The Guardians consistently make the postseason. So a lot of Guardians fans will say, well, Kenner, what are you complaining about? Like, they get to the postseason. That's the point. The Guardians get knocked out of the American League Championship Series last year against the Yankees. And everyone's like, see, they didn't have that's a success story. They didn't have to spend money to get there. Exactly. They didn't have to spend money to get there, but look how good they were without spending money to get there. Imagine how much better they would be if they spent money, and not even like a lot of money, just league average money. They're so cheap, and they do not invest into their team. So when Ramirez gave him that hometown discount a few years ago, I was irate. It's not like that's a team that tries financially. That team doesn't take, they don't deserve a hometown discount, but they got it. And now all of a sudden, and I love that this is happening, Ramirez is doing what I love when stars do this. I don't like diva athletes, but I like athletes who hold their team's feet to the fire when it needs being held their feet to the fire. Joe Burrow, I didn't agree with his angle. I thought it was kind of silly to use his media time to ask for more wide receivers. I thought it was kind of silly when you missed the playoffs because of your defense and inability to run the football and inability to protect the quarterback, but yet you spent every second of your media time begging for more wide receiver help. I thought that was kind of weird. But to Joe Burrow's credit, he knew that he didn't have the trust in his organization to do it correctly, so he was going to put the pressure on them. So to his credit, he did that. He utilized his power. I didn't like his approach. I thought it was kind of silly what he was asking for. I think that he should have used his power for good. He should have used his power to improve that defense in that run game, and I think that the Bengals would be much healthier from a roster standpoint, but that's besides the point. That's not what this topic's about. I like when stars call out their front office, not in a diva way, not in a way where it's confrontational, but hold your team accountable. Teams hold players accountable. Players need to hold their teams accountable. And I think that that's very important. People got on me all the time about my Joey Votto take. I love Joey Votto. It was fun watching Joey Votto, but I got to a certain point later in Joey Votto's career where I'm like, I know you worked hard to get that no trade clause built into your contract, but at any point, aren't you tired of the losing too? You can't tell me that Joey Votto trusted Dick Williams, and you can't tell me that Joey Votto trusted Nick Krall and the Cincinnati Reds front office organization, because at no point had they ever done anything of significance around him to make him feel that as his career is winding down, that he was going to have another final shot to go compete for a playoff berth or a World Series. But he was totally content with it. He was fine with it. He never demanded a trade. He never once seemed frustrated by the losing. He never once when you had the front office, when you had the owner's son mocking the Reds fan base, I went to social media immediately to look for a response from Joey Votto, and all I could find was TikToks of him in a kilt. And you know who came to the defense of Reds fans? Nick Castellanos, who was with the Phillies. Players who wanted to stay in Cincinnati that ultimately left Cincinnati were defending Reds fans more than the players who remained in Cincinnati, and that was my problem. And yet I was the bad guy because I said I question the competitive spirit of Joey Votto, because at no point did he ever come out and speak up about the team's inability to put a competitor on the field. How do you not care about that? If Joey Votto would have come out and said, you know what? Things need to change. Like, I love it here. I love the fans. But my career is winding down, and I would love to play for a contender. I would love for this team to be the contender we really need to improve this offseason. He never did that. And I've had people say, well, had he done that, then fans would have said, oh, man, look at him. He's trying to get out of Cincinnati. No, he would be saying what all of us Reds fans say. The Reds need to spend more money. They need to go get better players, and they need to show some urgency in the offseason. Why would anybody boo Joey Votto for that? Did anyone boo Joe Burrow for putting pressure on the front office? No, you guys cheered Joe Burrow for putting pressure on the front office. This is why I love what Jose Ramirez is doing here. Jose Ramirez basically warning the front office that, hey, it's 2025. We're heading into 2026. I'm going to be here for a few more years. But as far as the extension talks are concerned, Jose Ramirez is going to get every single dime that he deserves. And guess what? It will not be in Cleveland. He will be in Los Angeles. He will be a Dodger. He will be a Yankee. He will be a Padre. He might even be a Cub. Who knows? But he will not be in Cleveland. And he's basically telling him that. You promised me you were going to use the money that I'm discounting you to go put better players around. And yet at the trade deadline, the only thing the Guardians were doing was dangling every good player that they had available for teams to come and get it. How do you think that made your star player, your face of the franchise, feel when you're trying to get rid of your star players instead of adding at the deadline? And then somehow, some way, they go on this awesome run and make the playoffs. Good for Cleveland. But that's the point. If you just complemented this roster with just a league average spending money, not even break the bank money, how much better would that team be? Good for Jose Ramirez for calling out the Guardians. I wish more teams would do that. People say, well, that doesn't happen in baseball. It's happening in baseball. It's happening with Jose Ramirez. Good for him. Nick Castellanos does it. Jose Ramirez is doing it. You know, the other athlete, the other baseball player that I have no respect for, that I think has no competitive drive, that has no desire to win, is Mike Trout. Mike Trout statistically is going to go down, and many say statistically he'll be the best ever statistically when his career comes to an end. But I think they've made his entire career with the Angels, they've made the postseason once. And have you ever heard Mike Trout say, you know what? I demand a trade. I need out of here. Or, hey, you know what? I demand that this organization spend more money or go get good players, or you know, if we don't start winning, my career's winding down. I need to get out of here to go experience winning elsewhere. How does a player like Mike Trout, who is statistically good enough to be the face of the league, how does the guy that is statistically good enough to be the face of the league only made it to one postseason? Guys, can you imagine LeBron James in the NBA had he only made one playoff appearance his entire career? That would be inexcusable. That's what's happening with Mike Trout. And yet people rip LeBron James because, you know what? He gave Cleveland 7 great years, and he was demanding that Cleveland get him some help. They gave him geriatric Shaquille O'Neal, geriatric Ben Wallace. They gave him Larry Hughes. Not the same thing. That's not the help he was talking about. Right? You look at the Boston Celtics, who were getting Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen and Paul Pierce and Rajon Rondo, who never gets included in the big 3 talk. They had a big 4. Rondo was fantastic in Boston. Let people forget about that. You know, and you know, all these teams are being built, and they're coming together to stop LeBron and the Cavs are doing everything that they can to stop themselves as well. So LeBron said, you know what? I gave you my, I signed the extension after my rookie season. You continued to take pieces away. You gave me Eric Snow. My goodness. You know, Antoine Jameson was a good addition, but that's not enough. You know what I mean? Like they basically said, hey, we'll get you Larry Hughes and we'll get you Antoine Jameson. We're basically we'll try to get you Gilbert Arenas. We'll just try to make us that version's Washington Wizards team. Make the Cavs good. They didn't do that. So then LeBron left to go pursue greatness, because if you stay in Cleveland and you don't win, now you're considered a bum because you don't get championships. But then if you leave Cleveland to go get championships, you're a bum because you're ring chasing. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But I would much rather my favorite athletes, demand greatness and pursue greatness than to be a Joey Votto who was content with losing his entire career in Cincinnati. I would much rather my star players ring chase and pursue greatness than to be content with losing, like Mike Trout with the Angels. And I don't get how people get mad at me for that take. I don't think it's that crazy of a take. Well, how do you know that Joey Votto is content with losing? Show me one example of him ever being unhappy with the way that his Reds career went from a team perspective. Joey Votto should be furious at the Reds, because had the Reds been a better contender throughout his career, he would be a shoo-in Hall of Famer. I think he still gets in, but I think it's going to take a while, and I think that there's going to be a lot of people who kind of look at him as a fringe Hall of Fame player. If the Reds were better, he's a lock to get into the Hall of Fame. It's as simple as that. Like, those are the little things, like legacy things, that because of his non-competitive drive, it's going to hurt him in the back end, I think, when it comes to legacy, as far as that goes. And as much as I love the Reds Hall of Fame, I love the Reds Hall of Fame Museum, if the peak of his post-career celebration is getting into the Reds Hall of Fame and that's it, and making the ballot for the Baseball Hall of Fame, that's on the Reds, but that's also on Joey Votto for never once demanding that the team be great. Guys, how many rebuilds did they go through for Joey Votto in his time in Cincinnati? I have a hard time respecting baseball players because I agree. When a lot of people say that's not how baseball works, that's my problem with it. If these guys are going to go make the money that they are getting, I would like to believe that they have some kind of competitive spirit within them, and they don't. And they don't. It's all about the money, which is fine. Go get that money, but it's kind of hard to respect athletes from that perspective. When that type of stuff, as far as I'm concerned. Ron Howard, Myles Garrett is happy with losing, staying with Cleveland. That was one that in the offseason, people thought that I was mad that Myles Garrett was demanding a trade. I was like, no, that's actually a good thing. Myles Garrett, that the face of the franchise, was saying, that's it. Enough is enough. You're not going to waste my talent. You need to start making some moves that are going to put us in position to succeed moving forward, or I want out of here. Now, he looked a little goofy at the end because ultimately he signed that $40 million contract extension. And they've done a lot of losing. But there was obviously enough said in their one-on-ones to guarantee him that they were going to be riding the ship and putting them in position to be more successful moving forward. Now, a lot of you are saying, 1-4, yeah, how's that working out for you? I'm pretty sure it was a much broader plan. There's not a whole lot that Cleveland could have done to instantly turn things around, obviously. But you look at that rookie class, I'd say that that's a pretty good start as far as that's concerned. But no, Ron, you're right. Did Myles Garrett have that competitive gene to go demand to be traded elsewhere to a contender, or did he just want to be fat and happy? The reason I think he still believes that Cleveland can get this right at some point is because he could have got that money elsewhere. He was going to get that money whether he stayed in Cleveland or went elsewhere. And I have a hard time believing that Cleveland is the city of dreams, and that's why he just, couldn't leave. But Ron, you're not technically wrong, and I'm not going to die on that hill and say that he's that ultimate competitor as far as that goes. But nonetheless, all right. Sorry, that was a long rant, but that Ramirez story got me thinking. I love seeing that. I love that Ramirez is calling out his team because it's not done in a way that is airing dirty laundry. To me, if that front office made a promise to him and yet all they've done every year is threaten to trade players away, not trade for players. Quan should be a player that's there for many years to come with Ramirez. And instead, Quan's probably gone this offseason. I can't believe they didn't move on from him at the deadline. The Guardians, they don't spend any money. And I think, and I had this take a few years ago too, that it's bad for baseball. It's been like when teams are successful, when they don't spend money, I know everyone wants to look at it as a feel-good story. I think that hurts baseball because then when the Reds look at the Guardians and say, see, they don't spend a dime and they make the postseason, we don't need to spend money. We just need to draft and develop better. And although that may be true, you need to draft and develop better, you still need to spend money to show that you're investing into the team that you bought. And it's not just some hobby on the side. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. All right, good stuff. The Justin Kinner Show will step away for a few moments. We'll talk some Ohio State when we come back. We'll also have that Jason Fitz interview around the corner as well. It's the Justin Kinner Show. We'll be right back coming up here in about 4 minutes.